it is in some senses a repetition of what was happening in the late 80s, early 90s. When I was working on the translation of Alberti, I was working on the university mainframe computer in Cambridge, of course, which was where much of this stuff started. Charles Babbage was at Cambridge, Alan Turing was at Cambridge, and I soon realized that you were able to do things on computers you couldn't do otherwise. In the days of typewriters, with Tipex, you could maybe produce 2 copies of something, but what you could do when you started using computers was revise and polish the text until something new came out. And when we were working on the Alberti, Joseph Rickford, I was working with, was saying, let's have to think about what style we should write it. And of course, that was kind of the age of postmodernism in some senses. But it wasn't a question of style, it was a question of the process. And I think I could somehow glimpse then that AI was going to be very significant. But in the studio, at the University of Cambridge, in the studio, nobody was allowed to use computers. Computers were banned. So which was a disaster for the students, because when they graduated, they were frankly unemployable because suddenly everybody needed to use computers, and if you couldn't use computers, then you couldn't be employed. So I think it's kind of similar to that, but what I would say is different is that these things are learning. That makes them radically different. In other words, they're not just a tool. There's something that is a tool that can learn and become better and better and better. And that's really the challenge, is the fact that they can learn and adapt and improve themselves.